Huples cat, do you suffer from heartburn? You need to watch this video if you suffer from heartburn.
The popular acid reflux medication, Zantac, has been under heavy scrutiny for a lot of years.
And if you've been admitted to a hospital outside of Ontario, you might also want to watch this video.
After it was revealed that the drug has been contaminated with a chemical called NDMA, and also that the drug was breaking down into dangerous components even beyond that.
There's been rumours for quite some time that a product called Zantac, as a trade name, from Sanofi medications, you may have heard of Sanofi in relation to a scam related to COVID that large numbers of people bought into and still do. But leaving that aside, Sanofi makes an awful lot of medications, and here's a few of the medications that are available in Canada. You can look this up in the United States of America. What I'm not saying in this video is that all of these medications are dangerous, or that any of them are, or that you should actually stop or try and substitute any of the Sanofi medications that are offered to you either over the counter or in fact in a hospital setting or by prescription. I am not saying that. What I am saying is that they're still listing Zantac as an acceptable medication in Canada for residents of Canada, and that is in fact not true. We've removed all IV and oral Zantac from our hospital in the Greater Toronto area. I work in a major teaching hospital. Last week we removed all of it and we've substituted it for a product called Ranitidine. Now, I'm not saying that all of these drugs are bad. I'm saying that I don't know. What I am saying is quite clearly the fact that today they still have up Ranitidine, Zantac as an acceptable prescription medication in Canada is outrageous. What's even worse, of course, is that Zantac is an over-the-counter medication in less developed countries of the world, like the United States of America, whose government cares so little for its population. It does allow prescription medications like Zantac to be bought over the counter by people who are self-diagnosing.
Zantac was introduced into the market in the early 1980s, and they introduced it as this miracle drug that was designed to stop heartburn in its tracks. This was a hugely popular drug because it's an over-the-counter drug. And what that means is, when you go to get it, you don't have to have a prescription. You don't have to go to a pharmacist. You just walk right into a drugstore and grab it. Mm-hmm. And we saw so much success with Zantac. It actually became a billion-dollar drug, the first of its kind in that annual sales. So what these manufacturers were seeing were dollar signs in their eyes. They weren't seeing that this drug was actually poisoning people.
Well, they actually, early studies showed if the NDMA was being produced. They knew, if I got this right, they knew that NDMA that was being created in Zantac would cause liver disease, it would cause kidney disease, it would cause cancer, it would cause gastrointestinal disease. They knew all that, and they kept it quiet from what I can see.
Absolutely. There was absolutely no question of whether or not there was knowledge here. We had scientists in the early 1980s, before this drug was even developed, saying there's an ingredient in this drug, Zantac, called ranitidine. Ranitidine breaks down when it's exposed to high heat or temperatures or any type of exposure. They said you need to watch this ingredient because it causes NDMA, and that NDMA causes cancer.
I'm going to show the entirety of a 5-minute video from Russia Today. They have actually looked at this from a legal point of view, and they've actually got the lady attorney on who's actually going to prosecute Sanofi on behalf of a large number of people who have been taking Zantac for years, decades, without realizing something of critical importance. And she will explain how the drug is used and why everybody was well aware of the fact that this drug causes and makes worse cancer in everybody. So I'm just going to point out at this point, I know a large number of preppers suffer from heartburn, regular dyspepsia and heartburn, and actually prep a lot of medications for that. I would say again that yes, there is medications available like Pepcid and Famotidine and other medications available that actually remove the symptoms of heartburn. But if you have frequent heartburn, almost all people with that have that for specific reasons related to diet and exercise, and they need to actually get rid of the causation of the heartburn rather than just get rid of the symptoms. There is a very, very tiny fraction of people that would actually have congenital reasons to require this type of a medication. The vast majority of people have heartburn because they're eating too much fat, too much meat, and they're too inactive. All of those things, of course, also cause cancer and also cause heart disease. So if you are suffering from regular heartburn, get it looked at, find out why you have the heartburn, do not take Zantac or Ranitidine, do not take that medication, and do try and get the doctor to refer you to a dietitian, and do try to figure out why you're suffering from chronic heartburn. It's not a good thing. These medications mask the early symptoms of a lot of stomach cancers. So for that reason alone, being on a regular basis is a really bad idea.
So there was no question. There were studies released over the 40-year period that Zantac was on the market that this NDMA would cause huge trouble for its consumers.
Well, Sarah, there's also the part of it that's the most bothersome. A person takes Zantac, right? They get a load of NDMA. They don't even know it. Most people don't even know that the only use for NDMA is to test laboratory rats for cancer. They give the laboratory rats NDMA because it hurries up the process of cancer. Well, the public, I don't think, gets the connection between if they put that NDMA in their body and other DMA that comes from food. Talk about that just a little bit.
That's the absolute truth. Just to put this into perspective, this is a chemical that is used in rocket fuel. Rocket fuel, and they're allowing consumers to put this chemical in their body every single day, some over the course of this 40-year period that it's been sold. Now, NDMA is a carcinogen that is so potent that scientists won't even do a study, an epidemiological study on human beings, because they're so confident that NDMA can be linked to cancer.
I'm a registered nurse in Canada, and I've heard about Zantac being problematic for many, many years, actually. We've removed the IV doses now. We haven't actually really been using it. At the time when we asked why, we were told it might be associated with an increased prevalence, increased incidence of ventilator-acquired pneumonia. And I don't know whether that's in fact the case. I never bothered to look it up. There are other medications that are easily available that work just as well, so we never really thought too much of it. But this lawyer is saying quite clearly that they've known since the early 1980s that ranitidine breaks down and causes cancer, causes literal fragmentation in your normal cells, which is a precursor for cancer. And if you do have cancer, like she says in laboratory rats, they give the medication to the rats to make the cancers grow quicker so they can study them faster.
Okay, you're handling the discovery, you're getting ready for trial on this case. What is the most startling things that you're finding about it? If you were just say, if I'm looking at this across the board, this scares the bejesus out of me.
The fact that it's so obvious that this NDMA and this ranitidine molecule, that it could have been identified that this was going to be a problem. It was so obvious and it was so easy for these companies to figure this out, but they just either turned a blind eye or knew and just chose not to say anything about it.
Sarah, are you seeing, I'm seeing some studies that talks about how the NDMA actually modifies DNA. That is really scary. It modifies your natural DNA and creates cancer. Is there truth to that? Are the studies there?
So what we're seeing with NDMA is that it's causing what we call DNA fragmentation. And it's exactly how you described it. The NDMA is reacting with the cells in your body, and it's taking a healthy cell and it's turning it into a cancerous cell. And because NDMA is so potent, that cancer is growing at an alarming rate. It's causing all kinds of cancers. We're seeing liver cancer, gastric cancers, lung cancers. It's so alarming just how potent and how quick this NDMA reacts with the body.
In other words, it's not even a latency period to it. Sometimes it's immediate. Look, here's my advice. Don't take Zantac. Do away with Zantac. Pepsid, no showing on Pepsid doing the same thing. It's a good alternative. Pepsid is something I tell when people ask about Zantac. Take Pepsid. They got the tablets, chewable tablets, and the pills. I hope you go after them hard. I know you will. When will you be in trial?
Hopefully soon. We'll get them.
I don't know about you, but my main question here is why now? Why in 2021 have we finally twigged into this? I think because the evidence is overwhelming at this point, and I think it does bring up a very important point. If you are a free researcher, a scientist in biochemistry, it's very, very hard to get funding to show that a big pharma product is dangerous. It's really hard. It's very hard to get the funding. It's very hard to get it publicized. It's really, really difficult. This goes to the fact that governments, like in America, the FDA, and in Canada, Canada Health, need to make sure that the review process for medications has nothing to do with the pharmaceutical industry. Anybody that works in the pharmaceutical industries should never work on regulation for government. And anybody that works in regulation for government should never ever be allowed to work in regulation for pharmacy. And anybody that works in the government should never be allowed to work for Big Pharma on retirement or when they just think. Nobody who works for the government in pharmaceutical regulation should ever be allowed to get a job, consultation or work on the board of any Big Pharma company, ever. Now that may sound a lot like communism to people out there and it's their free will to do what they want, but when you get revolving doors where industry and Big Pharma is one of them, agriculture is another, and military combine is the other one, where they work like this: private, public, private, public, private, public. They're not able to be unbiased, to be harsh to the public sector to protect the public. And the public does require to be protected, and that's why in fact we have governments and we vote for them and we give them a large amount of our wealth in taxes. It's simply gone beyond the point at this point in history in most of the West where you can rely on the government regulation to protect you from the ill effects of pharmacy and big agriculture, and that's a huge shame. Now I know a lot of people out there who go, yeah, vaccines, vaccines. Yeah, okay. Vaccines are somewhat different. Yes, there's trillions of dollars involved in getting the vaccines to work, but they are being really harshly looked at for side effects. And I'm actually going to do a video in the near future actually exploding at a video that was put up by a prepper who actually is biased and is trying to give people the impression that vaccines are dangerous. Vaccines are not dangerous. We've had tens of millions of people vaccinated on the planet Earth. There's almost no side effects. The side effects that are coming up are arguable. Some of the side effects, in fact the side effect that used in the video, are obviously faked, and I will explain when I do the video about why people are faking side effects to vaccines. It's very sad. People are being pre-programmed to have distrust in their industries and their governments because of the merging of industry and government. There's no particular reason at all why the public sector cannot be kept separate from the private sector except for funding and targeted help. You cannot have a regulation of any industry that is controlled by the industry itself without harming, killing large numbers of us. And I'm sick to death of it. We don't vote government into office to allow corporations to do whatever they want to profit, irregardless of the outcome to us. So I'm going to say I hope you enjoyed this video, but I doubt you did, especially if you've been taking Zantac. If you are taking Zantac, the trade name is Zantac, the ingredient is Ranitidine. Take no more of it ever again. Get a doctor to prescribe you a medication that's good, and get a doctor to examine why you have frequent heartburn and what you can do with your lifestyle to prevent frequent heartburn. As I said, very few people actually require these medications long term. Millions of people are on them long term because of their diet and exercise. It's sad, it's tragic. We owe ourselves the ability to actually function as well as we can as a human being, rather than just rely on medications to fix unfortunate side effects of poor living. So if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you don't, give me a thumbs down. And if you really like the content I sometimes put out, I know some of my content people don't like because I'm a lefty and a greenie, but please feel free to subscribe me. And whatever you do, let me know what you think about this video in the comments below. I can assure you now, this is not Russian propaganda. This is not Vladimir Putin trying to destroy Zantac and Sanofi. This is actually a fair and balanced and reasonable review of what happened. And it's awful. Toodles.
This has been a Dog in a Bonnet production, 2021.